Drugs are bad, okay? Hello, 안녕하세요. I'm Shandrage. Welcome to Cinemarea, where we only talk about South Korean movies and dramas. Even if a movie is a remake of a 2012 Chinese movie. I'm talking about Believer or Tokchan. I haven't seen the original, but I heard that the 2018 Korean rendition is quite different. The movie stars Cho Jin-woong as a police officer. He has also starred in Hard Day, for example. Ryu Jun-yeol as a drug dealer who becomes an informant of the police. He has also starred in A Taxi Driver or Hit and Run Squad, for example. And Kim Joo-hyuk as a Chinese drug lord. Unfortunately, this was his final performance because he died in a car accident. Cho Jin-woong is a police officer who's trying to catch a drug lord called Mr. Lee. But it's a hard task. Nobody knows who Mr. Lee is. Then an explosion happens at a factory, and as it turns out, that place was one of those where Mr. Lee's drugs were made. Many of his higher-ups end up dead, but a young guy survives who becomes the informant of the police. So the police officer tries to catch Mr. Lee with the help of the informant. Believer is an action movie, and it doesn't really have much action in it. Weird, huh? Don't get me wrong, there is action. When it's there, the movie doesn't hold back at all. It's a lot of fun. But this is an interesting movie. It's interesting because it focuses more on tension rather than action. What do I mean by that? The first half of the movie is basically a huge setup, but that doesn't mean that the movie is boring. It's just that it takes time for certain characters to get introduced and to understand the scale and the scope of the story. And the movie uses tension to keep our interest. For example, Kim Joo-hyuk as the Chinese drug lord is an absolute psychopath. And the police are going undercover to meet him and maybe get closer to Mr. Lee. And when they finally meet, it really feels like they could die at any moment. It's not thriller-like tension, but there are quite a few scenes with this kind of approach, and I thought it was great. It's rare for an action movie to not be as eventful and yet being able to keep my attention. And that has to do with these very well-placed, suspenseful scenes. Believer is also interesting because, although it has many villain-like characters, the main villain is hidden for most of the movie. Or there are lots of villains in this movie, you can also look at it that way, but the main one is a mystery. There's a little twist in the end regarding that. I'm not gonna ruin it for you, but I think you're gonna be able to figure it out before the big reveal. But I will say this, when the villain is finally revealed, it's still not your typical villain. It's a lot more human. And its menacing qualities come from the power it has rather than its behavior. I keep constantly referring to the villain as it, so you won't know whether it's a man or a woman, okay? Aside from that, visually, Believer is pretty gorgeous. It's a pretty well-filmed movie. Sometimes the camera work is really creative. Certain set pieces and sceneries are beautiful. The action is also handled pretty well. From a visual standpoint, Believer is pretty much perfect. From an overall standpoint, it's not. Take the main character, for example. The fact that this character works is only because of Cho Jin-woong's performance. He really put his heart and soul into this role. But his character is seriously lacking. All we know is that he has been after this drug lord for 2 years. And then he becomes kind of obsessed about it. And that's about it. There are so many characters that the movie doesn't really have time to develop its main character, and it's problematic. And it's true for all the characters. And although the movie uses tension pretty well, it's still slightly uneventful, and I'd be lying if I said that I enjoyed every minute of it. No, watch this movie, stop it halfway through, and then think about what had happened up until that point. The answer will be, not that much. And it's not even a pacing issue, it's just that Believer feels a lot bigger than it actually is. Once you realize it, you can't unsee it. And also, I really wasn't a fan of the ending at all. The very last scene left a lot for me to be desired. But I'd also be lying if I said that overall I didn't enjoy this movie, because I did. I really liked the invisible villain approach. I really appreciated that the movie didn't try to be just another mindless action flick. If you want to watch an action movie that delivers on the action but is also a little different, I can highly recommend this one. I'm gonna give Believer 76%. It's really fun, believe me. Worst joke ever. Good night, kayo. That's all for today. Thank you all very much for watching. Like and subscribe. See you all very soon. 다음 시간에 만나요, 여러분. Bye.